The Cell C Tours South Africa is back after an 11-year break. 14 international teams and 6 South African teams are on the start line at Menlyn Park in Pretoria.
It's awesome to have this vibe here. I mean, it doesn't even feel like South Africa. It feels like we at a European race. The standard is so high. Everything's just been done perfectly. The accommodation, the sponsors, everyone's putting in more than they can, and just to have it in your own home yard, backyard, it's such an amazing feeling, and it's nice. It's cycling coming to the people, and a lot of sponsors are getting involved, and it's great for cycling in South Africa, and this is the future.
The 20 teams are made up of riders from 24 nations around the world.
Well, I mean, I'm Namibian, but this is basically my home tour. Finishes second last stage, finishes in Stellenbosch, where I went to university, where my family comes from. So I have to, show something here. I'm really looking forward to it, and I think the form's good, so I think I can do that.
The goal at the end of 7 days of racing was, of course, the golden jersey, but many of the teams have different objectives.
I think we'll take it as it comes. Obviously, we're Kevin and I are 5 weeks out of our main objective of the season, but we're proud to be here, and we're proud to be representing 360 Life, and I think we can be competitive on all fronts. We're going to give it a stab on all fronts.
Stage 1 saw the riders assemble at Menlyn Park Shopping Centre east of Pretoria for a stage that would take them 167 kilometres to finish at Monte Cassino in Johannesburg. They would circumnavigate the Hartbeespoort Dam as well as the Cradle of Humankind before coming home through Witkoppen Drive and eventually the finish at Monte Cassino. One Cat 3 climb and one hotspot was on the agenda for today. Start at Menlyn Park, and wonderful to have alongside me Voice of Cycling, Phil Liggett.
Thank you, Gerald. And the riders starting on the east side of Pretoria as they race into the big city and out the other side and circumnavigate on the way back to Johannesburg. Very ambitious first day of racing for a brand new event on the international calendar. And the riders, of course, of all of those riders coming from European destinations, coming to a very warm climate from a very, very chilly winter. In the first hour of racing, attack followed attack here as riders tried to break up the field and get the first breakaway underway.
Through Hartbeespoort is where the move of the day came. As they wound through the town and then over the dam wall, a move got away that included Martin Blaha and Christian House. They snuck over the only hotspot of the day with House in the lead and headed back for the dam and eventually Monte Cassino, with this pair starting to extend their lead.
So far, it's been a perfect day for the Rafaconda Sharp team from the United Kingdom because they won the prizes along the way. The breakaway was underway, and the referee here indicating you have got 1 minute and 30 seconds over the field as they literally crossed the dam walls.
Spectacular sights on the Hartbeespoort Dam, which is fed by the Crocodile River and irrigates the farmlands to the west. Trouble though for Martin Blaha. The Czech Republic rider started to go backwards over Skierpoort as they went over the hill, and it was Christian House who extended his lead to over 5.5 minutes.
Christian House could not believe what was happening. Where were the main field? Was what the question was to himself on the way. Well, they were preoccupied. A very bad fall here to Anthony Chateau, the pre-race favourite and last July's winner of the King of the Mountains in the Tour de France. He was out with a separated collarbone.
Meanwhile, Jay Thompson tried to put the hammer down to bring the Christian House lead down, but nothing was going to stop this man. He was in a league of his own as the peloton reacted rather late. Down Cedar Drive, they started to haul in the lead, but it was Christian House who dominated the day.
Christian House reached the line in solitary splendour, and there would be at least a couple of minutes before anybody would be coming home. He hadn't kept all of his lead, of course. They had closed it down, but his 2 minutes was ticking by as the field lined up now for the sprint for second place. They just about got them onto the right side of the road here in Witkoppen Drive as then they started the sprint for the line. And it looked as though the South Africans were going to enjoy at least a second place as Herman Fouchier, despite pulling his foot off the pedal, got second.
Whereabouts did you know that things weren't really happening in the peloton and that this could turn into a great solo win?
Well, to be honest, I never did. You kept getting time checks, but you kept hearing different things. The board was saying one thing, and then I was getting told another thing, and my computer wasn't working either, so I didn't know how many Ks were left. But I just couldn't believe the gap kept getting bigger. It was at 6 minutes, and it went down to like 5.5, and then it went back up over 7. And I just thought something weird's going on. I didn't know if I was getting the right time checks, and I just put my head down and just kept riding.
Whilst the peloton was slumbering, Christian Haas slipped away to open up a 2-minute and 22 lead, a significant one, even if it is just the first day of the Cell C Tour of South Africa.
So the stage was set for the second day of this race, the riders staying in the region of Johannesburg for a big circuit race which would take them right around the city, over 156 kilometres. Hills along the way as we headed down towards Soweto, sprints on the way back as we return towards the finish at Monte Cassino. Blue skies were forecast, no wind, and a perfect start from the piazza at Monte Cassino itself.
Neutral as they rolled out of the paving at Monte Cassino and then soon onto the roads around the northwest of Johannesburg. A great day's racing in prospect here with Christian Haas in the golden jersey. And again, the Toyota CSA youngsters attacking early on. Johan van Zyl is a man of great bravery and talent.
He's certainly a man for the future, just a teenager, but the attacks were coming thick and fast. The red jersey of the new King of the Mountains leader, Dan Craven, shooting out of the peloton as well. Although he'd said earlier he would give the lead away in the King of the Mountains because his job now is to try and defend the gold jersey for his Rafa Condor-Sharp teammate, Christian Haas. First target of the day was Roodepoort Hill at 22 kilometres covered, and an attack here by Bahane as he tried to move clear of the field and have a lone shot at the climb. And it looked as though he was going to succeed as he rapidly pulled clear of the field.
The field started to give chase though with just over a kilometre to go, and it was Bahane who was tiring as he was heading towards the watershed here on the Witwatersrand, and this would be his watershed.
This UCI African Continental team were really flying the flag high up the poles here, and for a long time it looked as though he was going to succeed, and then it happened. Ian McLeod in the red leading Dalal Impey in the grey, and these two riders diced out the result over the top, but Bahane did hang on to take third place from the peloton.
Once they'd got over the climb, they headed off towards Soweto, and again the attacks popped off the front, but they weren't sticking just yet until Daniel Tekla-Heinemond, also of the UCI team, and Kevin Evans slipped away, but they slipped in a bit of trouble on Dobsonville in Soweto.
And this was the first sign of things to come. A traffic jam in Soweto, the peloton having to filter through here, and they were quickly off and running again. The two leaders were swept up as they headed through Soweto itself, heading now towards Johannesburg. Everything seemed normal once again. Three South Africans, the average age 19.5 years of age, were getting clear of the field now, and they were building a lead of 1.25 minutes and climbing. They were now heading back in towards Johannesburg, and the site would be the Nelson Mandela Bridge when they got there.
In through the clear streets of southern Johannesburg, no problems at all as the peloton stretched out. Young Clint Hendricks, just 19, working hard for the Tassel GT team. A wonderful experience for him riding in his first major tour. A little bit of a problem there for Chris Jennings. He thought it was straight on. It wasn't. Turn left. Away went Van Zyl. Hendricks and Jennings following in his wake. As he went over the Nelson Mandela Bridge, Van Zyl was rejoined by the two chasers in Jennings and Hendricks.
The trio were all together again now, but the warning signs have been that left turn, because now we'd realised there was no longer any police with the race. The traffic was coming on the closed roads, and the three leaders were stopped by the race referees. They were allowed to restart again with the same time gap of 1 minute and 38 seconds, which was quickly reduced to 1 minute 17 as they continued to race now towards Sandton in the Johannesburg region. But again traffic entered the course, and again the race referees called the riders to a standstill.
I mean, how do you stop the Sandton traffic from going shopping? We need a little bit of driver education here.
The stage had been cancelled. Deep disappointment for all concerned.
When the riders were racing, when it was felt that we weren't able to secure the road in racing conditions, that after the third stop, that the decision was taken to then suspend the stage.
So it's back to business for the start of Stage 3 after the long journey from Johannesburg down to Port Elizabeth. The riders staying in Port Elizabeth, starting at the Nelson Mandela Bay Stadium and coming back to the nearby Summer Strand, right on the beach in this windy city. And the wind really was blowing as well. The riders now covering a distance of 173 kilometres. There was an increase in marshals and police to make sure that nothing went wrong on this third day of racing down in the Eastern Cape. The riders ready to go. Christian House in his yellow jersey, or gold jersey as they call it here, because Johannesburg is the city of gold.
A roll away from this magnificent stadium built for the FIFA 2010 World Cup and now hosting many magnificent sports events, and immediately the power was on. They were racing.
Yes, they were. They're out on the main N2 highway here, and they would race on this highway for a few kilometres, and very, very quickly there was attack after attack. 3 riders eventually forcing a lead. And yes, that man Johan van Zyl, the 19-year-old in the white here, was in the move once again. Aaron Brown was here for Team NTN Quebecer, and Thomas Kindies from Poland. And after 25 kilometres in Motherwell, they were showing the sprint there. It was Aaron Brown winning ahead of Johan van Zyl and Kindies in third. The gap at the moment, just over a minute and a half.
The first half of the day's riding took them inland, away from the ocean, towards the Addo National Park and the Sundays River Valley, before they would come around Patterson and head back towards Port Elizabeth, where the wind really would play a role. But Addo provided wonderful, wonderful entertainment away from the road as well for the riders.
Yes, this was a big, huge loop here, and the Addo Elephant Park is just the other side of the beautiful little hamlet of Addo itself. A chance for some of the foreign riders to see animals that perhaps they've never seen before. And the elephants in this part of the world really do come right up to the road.
The change of direction brought a change in circumstance. They came straight into the wind, and Dan Craven was one man to suffer heavily. The wind banged him against the barriers, over he went, and he fell very, very hard.
Then came the challenge on the climb here, and Daryl Impey was dishing out all of the pain to everybody and trying to establish the new leader of the King of the Mountains. He is being chased on the climb by Jonathan Tiernan-Locke as well. Over the top, Impey had done enough to lead the King of the Mountains by the end of the day, but could he win the stage? As a leading group of 12 riders raced for the line into a blockhead wind, it was the late starting Johan Gen of France who came through strongest off the final bend. The Frenchman winning his third race of the 2011 season with a powerful finish. The top professional Europcar team had come here to win, and on day 3 they'd done just that. South African Johan Arabi had got second place, and Greg Harbour of Belgium in third, with Tony Hurel of France in fourth.
A lovely whale to take away as a souvenir for a fantastic win, but Christian House dominated once again with the golden jersey. He consolidated his overall lead in the general classification.
Unfortunately, Dan Craven crashed, and just left 3 of us, but we did the job, and 2 of us finished in the very front group, so it was a good day.
Johan Gen takes the stage win. Johan Rabi keeps himself in the frame, and Gregory Harbeau, a big mover for Veranda Willems Extent, whilst Christian House does everything required for the Rafa Condor Sharp, well supported by Jonathan Tiernan-Locke. House 222 still ahead, but moving in behind him some key contenders in David George and Daryl Impey, and further down Peric Quemeneur, the Europcar rider, very much in the frame.
Stage 4, the race will continue along the garden route. The riders up bright and early for a near 200-kilometre transfer to the start at Blaukens Bridge, and then onward to George. And really there was a sting in the tail on this stage, with the steep climbs coming very near the end. But there was also a very steep climb right at the start of the day of racing, because roadworks had forced the race to be neutralised for the first few kilometres. The riders were now ready, and the sun was out once again, and Christian House still had all of his 2 minutes 22 seconds intact.
This is one of the most beautiful parts of South Africa, on the east coast, heading towards the beautiful garden route, the Tsitsikamma Forest, and these riders dropping down the Groot River Pass, heading towards Nature's Valley under a neutral flag because of roadworks on the descent. But once they hit the bridge at the bottom, racing would start in earnest, and the first bit they would have to deal with would be a 3-kilometre climb to the top of the first King of the Mountains.
Yes, we really are deep into the garden of the Garden Route of South Africa here, and once the race was started, Darren Lull was on the front, tapping out the rhythm, leaving a lot of riders behind to have to chase back, because over the top of that climb had gone Jonathan Tiemann-Lock of the Condor Rapper Sharp team, beating Impey, closing in on Impey's overall lead in the King of the Mountains.
Next stop was the magnificent holiday venue Plettenberg Bay, with kilometres of golden beaches. These riders were not noticing those because the pace was fierce as they headed in towards Kevin Evans' hometown. Evans wanted to make it count and get up there first. Peloton wouldn't let him.
No, Evans was put firmly back in his place as they cross Plet, as they call it, and then start on the next climb of the day, which would take them up the Pisong Valley Hill and up to the 37-kilometre point. They descended through Plet at something like 75 kilometres an hour. And just around this corner, there's a speed camera, and it should be only 60.
They certainly would have been caught there, and once again up the second King of the Mountains climb, it was Darren Lull putting the hammer down. But the day would turn into a contest between Jonathan Tiemann-Lock of Rapper Condor Sharp and Daryl Impey. Tiemann-Lock would take the second King of the Mountains back on the N2, and Sean Ward of 360 Life was putting the hammer down, trying to work something for David George. Ultimately, though, Jay Thompson made the key break.
Yes, it wasn't Sean Ward, he was the dummy move. Then Jay Thompson, his teammate, shot out of the pack and quickly gained a 97-second lead. He was hoping now he'll get to the wilderness and onto the approach to the finishing road, which would take them over this last series of climbs.
Out of Neisner along the lagoons, and Thompson glances at the board that says he's got a 2:23 lead over the pack. That includes this man, Christian House.
Meanwhile, while out front was Jay Thompson, the battle was always for second place on the mountains, Impey taking that one ahead of Tiemann-Lock. Then the field regrouped here. The men in black of Rapper Condor Sharp were now chasing down. Into the wilderness, they'd swept up Jay Thompson, and it was Christoph van Eerden who took the sprint in the wilderness. Then they were straight onto this very steep climb to take them to the 117-kilometre point. Daryl Impey was back on the front again, being heavily marked by Jonathan Tiemann-Lock.
It was Impey who prevailed this time around, the battle intense.
Then it was into the streets of George itself, and a breakaway by a lone Italian rider, Davide Torres Santucci, who broke clear 6 kilometres out and just about held on to take first place at the finish. The race was right behind him, but do you think he cared? He pointed to himself. He'd won the day.
A wonderful win for him. In second place was Kevin Retzer, with Darren Lull giving up the chase. He'd wanted to chase down for the victory.
And in the chase group, the golden jersey of Christian House. That was good enough to keep him in it as well.
Okay. First, to tell us about the finish. The finish here. How did he do the finish here?
He said that yesterday was a bad day for him because the wind. He isn't a rider for the wind. He's a climber. He likes the sun, the hot day and the hard stages.
Christian House dons the golden jersey once again, as he's done since the end of the first stage, and the podium looks like that. Impey still in red, whilst the 31-year-old David Torres Santucci celebrates the victory by 18 seconds over Retzer, Lil Rabi, and the remainder following home in the bunch. Stage 5 of the Celsey Tour South Africa started in Oudtshoorn and ended in Barrydale. For a man who's in 5th place overall, chasing the yellow jersey is key today.
Yeah, yesterday and the day before I was feeling very good, starting to feel better each day, and today I think it's going to be a normal stage. The wind doesn't look too bad, and it's a tailwind to the finish today, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow's stage. I think that's where the tour will be decided, the final general classification.
Stage 5 takes the riders out of Oudtshoorn all the way down Route 62. There's a hot spot just going through Karlitsdorp, and then the big climb up Heisterivier Pass. One more hot spot before an undulating and then a fast finish into Barrydale.
It was a very, very hot day when the 113 riders rolled out of Oudtshoorn. In the yellow and affording a smile, Christian House has led this race from day one and still defends a lead of 2 minutes and 22 seconds. Just a short neutralised zone this time, and the riders released as they started their journey along the rather romantic Route 62.
Wonderful to see the schoolboys and girls from Oudtshoorn out in numbers to wave goodbye to the peloton as it flies out of Oudtshoorn. 113 riders remain from the original 117 starters, heading out on the longest stage of the 7 on the Cell C Tour of South Africa.
And sure enough, as soon as the road left town, the action was on as riders tried to break clear of the field and be the first through the beauty, and stark beauty at that, of the Klein Karoo. Morocco on the attack there, but the field, as always in the opening hour, stretches, snaps and comes back together again.
Plenty of aggressive riding and wonderful vistas of historic monuments, the mountains and of course the farming community in the area as well. Another attack. This is Frank Dressler going out up the climb. It's a short climb, but he's using it to try and get away. He's not going far because Malcolm Langer has marked him.
Yes, and the other rider journey on quickly there too was a rider from Morocco. 2 sprinters trying to get clear in that little break of 3. But again, the field stretched and there was trouble at the bunch. It started to come back once more. Jeremy Martins just tagged on the back there. Then there were 6 riders going clear. And the yellow jersey of Christian House. It looks like he's on his own, but in fact his teammates were all around him.
They've done a wonderful job all week in defending that lead. He opened up in Johannesburg on stage 1 when they went from Pretoria through to Monte Cassino. 2 minutes and 22 it stands still, and he's comfortably in control. Through the hole in the Sandstone Rock, Klipspringers. This is South Africa at its best. It's a spectacular road, the Huisrivier Pass, completed in 1978 as it is now. Gabriel Selassie going up the road on the climb. Perhaps ill-advised with so much still to do in the day, but he was determined to get to the top of the King of the Mountains in first place.
Yes, he was. Once he got a lead of about 100 metres over the rest of the breakaway, they held him there, but he stayed clear all the way up the summit, the time gap being showed 2 minutes and 29 seconds. The main field were making hard work of catching these riders now, who have been in the lead for just on 40 kilometres at this point.
Over he went. The King of the Mountains was his for the day. Following him were the rest of that breakaway. They were soon to haul him in. Tyler Day, the young man from Bonitas Med Scheme, has had such an impressive start to the year. Rafa Condor are on the front.
The field at this point were trailing by a little bit over 3 minutes, so the climbing style of the rider from the UCI African team had proven good. The race moved on to Ladysmith. It was Tyler Day winning here ahead of Frank Dressler in the special sprint. All that remained now was the finish. The peloton were timed, still behind by 3 minutes, as they too set fair course and leaving Ladysmith bound for the R62 to Barrydale.
Bonus for the tourists as Dan Craven leads the peloton as it sweeps past one of the great landmarks in the Klein Karoo, Ronnie Seck's shop. It's world famous.
I believe it sells apples and oranges though.
And the odd beer.
Well, the field, though, were getting themselves together here. They kept on the constant pressure, and unluckily for the 6 riders still ahead, the wind was now changing direction. It was becoming extremely hard, and they were labouring on long, straight roads in scorching heat. Barrydale still seemed an awful long way away as the gap began to fall.
Precious water in the Klein Karoo, evidence of some welcome rains as Tyler Day takes on some welcome liquid. Jeremy Martins is a hard man and he put the hammer down to open up a little bit of a gap, and Daniel Tekla-Heinemann from the peloton tries a little counter-attack.
And they were all swept up, and as the field that survived together raced down towards the finish, they lined up for the last kilometre, a sprinter's delight. It was a massive sprint of riders, and another Italian on day 2 taking it, Bernardo Riccio.
We had quite a good wall of sprinters on the front. We're lying about 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and then the Italians just prolonged their sprint and got us within the last 50 metres. So unfortunately we didn't win, but we got a 4th, 5th and 6th, so yeah, we're happy.
It's been a good tour for Team Nippo, a second stage victory for them. Bernardo Riccio doing it this time. Impey, Van Heerden, Jen, Fouchier, Brown, all in the sprint finish, all finishing behind the fast finishing Italian. Christian Haas, 2 minutes and 22. That lead has been there since day one of the Cell C Tour of South Africa. It's up to those who go down to 7th place, De Gand and Impey, Rabi, Van Rensburg, George and Cremineur, to try and sort him out on the penultimate stage. Stage 6 of the Cell C Tour of South Africa, and the base for the race was the Cullinan Hotel, a Southern Sun star hotel very close to the waterfront. We're on the waterfront as well for the start of the stage. Hermanus in the Overberg, a jewel in the Southern Cape's crown. The race is open today. It's the last day in the mountains.
The penultimate day of the race, the 6th day, is the last day the riders would spend in the mountains. 140 kilometres taking them away from Hermanus over to Stellenbosch. Even the finish was on top of a hill, the old Hellshoekte. On the way they would cross the giant Franschhoek Pass as well. This was the last chance to attack Christian Haas for sure. Haas was quickly on the front line, looking rather pensive. Alongside him, the leader in the King of the Mountains in red, Daryl Impey. But the breakaway did get clear as we headed for the N2. First time check 69 seconds. And Dan Craven there licking his lips, thinking of the fight ahead today.
The break was away. 5 riders soon became 4 because this man, James Perry, started slipping back on the lower slopes of the Hellshoek Pass, leaving Clint Barrow, Johan van Zyl, Neil MacDonald and Stefan Coden.
And they were anxious to get on with the race. Now, the immediate concern wasn't there for Christian Haas because these riders were not threatening his overall lead. It was Johan van Zyl who led over the top of the first climb at the 35-kilometre point. Christian Haas just waiting for the other South Africans, much nearer to him in the overall classification, to launch an attack. We were now heading through Grabo and onto the second climb of the day.
Viljoen's pass it was, and that 4-man breakaway was still away with a kilometre to go over the top. Van Zyl out of the saddle leading them up. 20-year-old Clint Barrow, the first time we've seen him in a break, and once again Van Zyl takes the points.
With the biggest lead so far for the breakaway, 3 minutes and 3 seconds when they crossed over that climb.
Around the Theewaterskloof Dam and up they started to go. A brilliant attack by David George out of the pack. He seared past the breakaway and headed up that pass at breakneck speed. Dennis van Niekerk led the counter-attack. This was to collect more points at the King of the Mountains for the man in red, Daryl Impey, and he would not lose that jersey now with only 1 climb left in the tour.
And that was to the finishing line. On the long descent of Franschhoek, David George had gone over the top with a lead of 50 seconds on his own. On the way down, though, the field were chasing him. He got the sprint point in Franschhoek and was pushing on, but the field were closing in. It was now just a matter of seconds. He'd given up.
Shortly before the turn-off into Boschendal, he was hauled in and the race was on for the finish. Not far away, and George would watch these riders come flying past. Now it was a game of cat and mouse. Dennis van Niekerk, he was up there for MTN Quebec.
As they headed up towards the top of the new Hellshoekte Pass, they descended down towards the bottom and then they turned here up the old one. 11 riders going for the first place, at least they thought they were, until the champion of South Africa, Darren Lill, got away at the base of the finishing climb.
He left the others in his wake. An incredible attack by Darren Lill. He's been aggressive on virtually every climb in this tour. Now he's got the reward.
So at last a victory for a South African, and in fact they were to take the next 3 places as well. He was the winner on the day, and how fitting is it that the first victory was done by the new champion of South Africa. Johan Rabi confirmed his ascent in this race, second on the day, now second in the race.
It's actually really a nice pass. You know, it's probably not as hard as the new one, but it's at least a little bit shady in places. And in terms of one trying to ride away, you know, when you're out of sight around a corner, it's better for you, and the guys chasing can't see exactly where you are.
There was little effect on the general classification though. Christian Haas finishing in the main bunch just behind the leaders to consolidate his position as the race leader. Johan Rabi now takes second place from Daryl Impey, and a lap that would test the best today because it was 11 kilometres in extreme conditions. 2 hot spots after laps 3 and lap 6, and no doubt on a course like this, potential sprint finish. It was going to be cracking racing. They rolled away from the start in extreme conditions, 35 degrees at midday when they rolled away, with the man in yellow, Christian House, secure that if he stayed on his bike, he would keep that jersey and take the trophy. It was to be a sprinter's day today. This type, of course, no King of the Mountains Supremes to be decided, and so the attack started early, as Phil said. 4 riders trying their effort to get away from this chasing bunch. The platoon bunch is certainly not going to let go that easily, though.
Fabio Calabria, the Australian on Team Type 1, paid a visit to the front, but found no takers when it came to a low move. He quickly went back into the field. But all of the time they were splintering off the front under the pressure of the strongmen, trying to establish that first breakaway of the day.
Little dash by Sean-Nick Bester of Team 360 Life. Didn't last too long, and they kept pounding off the front until a significant move got away under the guidance initially of Richard Baxter and Kevin Evans.
Speeding through the traffic circle there, eventually a breakaway did establish itself. Soon 6 riders were clear. MTN didn't have a rider in the breakaway. They tried to put one there, but it wasn't to be. In the end, though, 9 riders did come together, and for a long time they were off the front of the race. Could they stay away and win the day?
It was a tough lap, but they worked seamlessly together for lap after lap here as they opened up a lead that got beyond the 1 minute gap and shared water as well, and Nicholas White sharing with his old teammate Hanko Kachelhofer.
You can't blame them for that, because this was arguably the hottest day of the week, and it was absolutely sweltering in Paarl. The riders now more preoccupied themselves by taking on drinks than chasing down the leaders. An attack coming here initially from the man who'd started the move in the first place. Richard Baxter tried to split up the breakaway. There was now just 22 kilometres to go. Kevin Evans was up for it.
He's the hard man of the break, but Kevin Retzer is the strong man, and he was able to get back onto Kevin Evans' wheel. Tekla Heinemann and Baxter able to match him as well. But soon they were all back together again, and Nicholas White's glance over his shoulder told him a telling story that peloton was chasing them down.
Yes, the peloton was riding now at just 35 seconds back of this breakaway. That was the reason for the panic, of course, as they tried to go. Confirmation there, the break was now 33 seconds.
Peter Seifert is sitting on the back. He had done for a while, but now he was prepared to put in some work as well. Retzer, though, was immensely strong, and every time he went, he shattered this break, trying to eliminate 1 or 2 behind him. Baxter stayed with him until eventually Retzer said, well, I've done my bit. Baxter tried his. Evans went with him, but they wouldn't last long. And James Perry, once they'd been swallowed up the break, Perry tried his luck off the front.
Good tactical move this by James Perry, part of the Tassel GC team, because he had his man Richard Baxter now back in the bunch, Perry on the attack, but he was getting too close to the finish. The sprinters weren't going to be usurped now. They were chasing down Perry and preparing themselves for a mass sprint to the line in Market Street.
The sprinters were readying themselves, the likes of Aaron Brown of MTN Kuberka, as well as Johan Jen of Team Europcar, and Bernardo Riccio, a stage win already in this tour, were preparing for what was looking like a mass sprint finish. Away went Jay Thompson, countering as Perry was brought back. Jan van Zyl went with him, and Team Rafa Condor Sharp marked the move as well.
Yes, quickly marking him out. Christian House now knowing the race was already his. He couldn't possibly regain the time he'd earned over the last week of racing, so he was happy now to watch Team Europcar take the front. 4 riders left on this squad, 2 have gone out, and all 4 on the front. It was really everybody for himself as they tussled and crossed swords, approaching the last traffic circle before the left turn into the finishing line in Market Street. Crucial bend this, shallow uphill towards the line, and the sprinters had to judge it to perfection, and they were all getting themselves to the front. The only South African victory so far was yesterday with Darren Lill. Were they going to produce a sprinter now? And the answer was no. The Italian Bernardo Riccio, who won the stage earlier in the week at Barrydale, had done it again, getting ahead of Martin Verschoor and Johan Jen from the Europcar team.
The yellow jersey of Christian House was safely ensconced inside this main move, and that just completed a wonderful week for Rafa Condor Sharp. The stage winner, Bernardo Riccio of Team Nippo, their best young African rider, Johan Rabi, Best young rider in the Samsung Young Riders jersey, Christopher Jennings, and Daryl Impey of MTN Quebec raises the King of the Mountains trophy aloft. But the man who raises his arms aloft and dons the golden jersey for the final time is Christian House, the inaugural winner of the Celsey Tour of South Africa. He will shake that JC Leroux and spray it everywhere because it's celebration time, not only for these riders but for the Tour itself, because they've welcomed a new sponsor on board in the name of Lotto. They have committed themselves to being involved in this race. Bernardo Riccio, 2 hours 24. In fact, the top 33 riders all finished inside that time. Importantly, so did the yellow jersey man Christian House for Schur. Great result for him. And Johan Jen, proving he is a sprinter to be reckoned with in the future. He could make a few worry in Europe this year. On general classification, Christian House dominant 2 minutes and 9. Johan Rabi made up time on stage number 2. Daryl Impey, the king of the mountains. Perry Quemeneur had a good day out and a good tour for Europcar to finish in 4th place. Darren Lill's efforts in Stellenbosch earned him a top 10 place, and Milan Kadalic, one of the older men in the tour, completing the top 10. Yes, it's been a long wait, but the Celsey Tour of South Africa is back. Long may it last.